Hello and welcome to Vantage This Week, a show where we bring you the biggest stories of the week gone by. Russian President Vladimir Putin was on a two-day visit to India this week. The trip saw a private dinner, a full day of talks and multiple agreements. We'll break it down for you and tell you about the key takeaways. Meanwhile, India faced a major aviation meltdown this week. More than 1,000 flights were cancelled. This came as IndiGo's pilot shortage spiraled. We'll discuss how the crisis began and what comes next. Sri Lanka continued to grapple with deadly floods after Cyclone-hit. India led the regional relief effort, but Pakistan faced fury over expired aid bags. And in tech, Google's Gemini has shaken up the AI landscape. OpenAI has declared a code red, pausing new projects to refocus on ChatGPT. All this and more lined up. Let's get started.
My friend, Rashtrapati Putin, Namaskar, Dobry din. Yes!
It's day two of Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to India. It has high stakes, high symbolism and even higher expectations. The Russian president landed in New Delhi last evening. From there, it was off to a private dinner, a dinner with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two leaders met away from cameras, away from formalities and away from the buzz of protocol. Prime Minister Modi also gifted President Putin a Russian translation of the Bhagavad Gita. But yesterday was just the trailer. Today was the main event. The summit, the talks, the announcement, all of it was packed in one day. It started with a ceremonial welcome. President Vladimir Putin arrived at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in his Aurus Senat. This is Putin's luxury limousine. He takes it everywhere he goes. He was welcomed by President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. From there, it was a short trip to the Rajghat. That's the memorial dedicated to Mahatma Gandhi. President Putin laid a wreath there. He observed a moment of silence and even penned down a special note in the visitor's book. You can see the message on your screen. It's in Russian, but here's what it says. Putin described Mahatma Gandhi as one of the key founders of modern India. He said Gandhi's ideas still remain relevant today, and they continue to inspire the world. After this, it was down to business, the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit. President Putin arrived at the Hyderabad House. That was the venue for the bilateral summit. The two leaders met. So did the two delegations. Multiple MOUs were signed. An MOU is a Memorandum of Understanding. It's basically an agreement. Many of these were signed today.
विश्व का कल्याण शांति के मार्ग पर ही है. हम सबको मिलकर के शांति के रास्ते तलाशने चाहिए. और पिछले दिनों जो प्रयास चल रहे हैं, मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि विश्व फिर से एक बार शांति की दिशा में लौटेगा.
We had the opportunity, and you gave me that opportunity, to speak in detail about what is happening on the Ukrainian track and about the steps we are taking jointly with some other partners, including the United States, toward a possible peaceful settlement of this crisis.
So the two leaders discussed Ukraine. They also talked about oil, trade, defense, economic cooperation and tourism. Then it was time for the joint statement. We'll bring you the key takeaways from that in just a bit. But first, here's something that caught everyone's attention. Prime Minister Modi welcomed President Putin in Russian.
Your Excellency, my friend Rashtrapati Putin, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार, dobry दिन.
With the bilateral statements done, they headed to the India-Russia Business Forum. It was held at the Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. The focus was on trade, technology and connectivity. The two leaders talked about entering a new era of innovation. They spoke about artificial intelligence, co-production and co-creation, and how India's young workforce could help Russia.
हम उस लक्ष्य को समय से पहला पूरा करने के संकल्प के साथ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और मेरा विश्वास बढ़ रहा है. INSTC या तो फिर नॉर्दर्न सी रूट यानी चेन्नई व्लादिवोस्टोक कॉरिडोर, इन पर हम आगे बढ़ने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं. जल्द ही इस दिशा में प्रगति होगी. इससे ट्रांजिट टाइम घटेगा, कॉस्ट कम होगी और बिजनेस के लिए नए मार्केट्स खुलेंगे.
We are ready for broad cooperation with India in the area of artificial intelligence, where both our countries have their own advanced developments. Russia is interested to take part in the Artificial Intelligence Summit in India scheduled for February 2026, as I have just told Mr. Prime Minister.
The two leaders also exchanged gifts. Prime Minister Modi gave President Putin fine Assam black tea, an ornate silver tea set, a silver horse, a marble chess set, Kashmiri saffron, and of course, like I told you, the Bhagavad Gita in Russian. From there, Putin's next order of business was more personal. It was the launch of RT India. It's a new channel from Russia today. But the day was not over yet for him. The last engagement was a state dinner at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. It was a grand affair. There was a joint military band performing. The menu blended elements from both India and Russia, including Kashmiri Wazwan and Russian borscht. Will Putin eat any of it? Chances are he won't. The Russian president rarely eats food prepared by local chefs. He travels with a team of his own chefs, aides and security personnel. The ingredients for his food are pre-approved. They're cooked under strict protocol, and a mobile food testing laboratory accompanies him. So he's unlikely to taste the feast, but that's hardly the point of these dinners. And with that, it was the end of day 2 and the visit.
भारत रूस मित्रता एक ध्रुव तारे की तरफ बनी रही.
So you've seen all the color. Now let's talk about the substance. The joint statements, the agreements, the key takeaways. Prime Minister Modi and President Putin held wide-ranging discussions. They reviewed every aspect of the India-Russia relationship. And one issue dominated the talks: trade. Considering the current geopolitical climate, that's hardly surprising. Trump's tariffs have caused considerable upheaval. But for India and Russia, the tariffs have also opened up opportunities, and both sides want to capitalize on that. Today, they announced a new economic roadmap. That was the first big takeaway: the India-Russia Economic Cooperation Program. Its agenda is quite ambitious. India and Russia want to achieve $100 billion in annual trade. That is the new goal, $100 billion.
आर्थिक सहयोग को नई ऊंचाइयों पर ले जाना हमारी साझी प्राथमिकता है. इसे साकार करने के लिए आज हमने 2030 तक के लिए एक इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन प्रोग्राम पर सहमति बनाई है. इससे हमारा व्यापार और निवेश डाइवर्सिफाइड, बैलेंस और सस्टेनेबल बनेगा और सहयोग के क्षेत्रों में नए आयाम भी जुड़ेंगे.
What's the value of bilateral trade today? Around $65 billion. They want to expand it to $100 billion. Both sides believe that it is within reach, the $100 billion mark. Russia is counting on energy exports. Putin wants to keep supplying oil to India. Today he said the shipments will remain, quote unquote, uninterrupted.
Russia is a reliable supplier of oil, gas, coal, and everything that is required for the development of India's energy. We are ready to continue uninterrupted shipments of fuel for the fast-growing Indian economy.
It's a strong message of intent. Putin highlighted some projects which are already in the pipeline, like the Kudankulam project in Tamil Nadu. Now, this is a southern Indian state, Tamil Nadu. It's where India is building its largest nuclear power plant in Kudankulam, and Russia is playing a pivotal role in it. Russia is providing the reactor technology. It is sharing construction expertise. The Kudankulam plant will have 6 nuclear reactors. Putin said that 2 of them are already operational, another 4 are being built, and he said that Russia remains committed to the project. He also said that they are open to sharing more advanced nuclear technologies with India, like modular reactors and floating nuclear power plants. Putin said that both sides discussed these possibilities, so energy will remain a key pillar of the India-Russia partnership. Having said that, India wants a more balanced trade relationship, and that is the second big takeaway. India wants to export more to Russia, and Russia is willing to buy more. They signed some agreements today. The Russians will buy more of marine and agricultural products from India. And this is interesting, this choice of products, because these are the exports that have been hit by Trump's tariffs. He slapped 50% import duties in August, so Indian exports have suffered, and now Russia is offering an alternative market for Indian goods. But can it fully make up for the hit from the US market? That's unlikely. America is still one of India's biggest export destinations. Russia is a large economy, but it cannot match that level of demand. So this won't be a replacement, but it can help offset some of the losses. It can bring more balance to India's trade with Russia. Then we come to headline number 3, and that is defense. There were no big announcements on this front. Both sides reaffirmed their partnership. They signaled a shift in direction. And I'll tell you how. Traditionally, India has been a major buyer of Russian weapons. But now they want to build together. And the joint statement spells it out. It lists new areas of cooperation like defense, spare parts and key components, including parts of existing Russian systems. Both sides back the idea of technology transfers and the setting up of new joint ventures.
Russia and India traditionally cooperate closely in military and technical areas. Our country has helped in the modernization and in equipping the Indian Army for more than half a century, including its air defense forces, aviation, and its navy. Generally, we are certainly satisfied with the results of the talks.
So the defense partnership is moving from trade to production. Headline number 4. The people-to-people ties. India and Russia have signed a mobility agreement. It will allow Indian professionals to work in Russia in both white-collar and blue-collar sectors like construction, engineering, textiles, manufacturing and electronics. And with this mobility pact, around 70,000 Indians could get a job in Russia. But that's not all. India too is opening up. It is inviting Russian tourists to visit India. New Delhi will soon offer a 30-day free e-tourist visa to Russians. Prime Minister Modi made the announcement himself.
मुझे खुशी है कि शीघ्र ही हम रूसी नागरिकों के लिए निःशुल्क 30-डे ई-टूरिस्ट वीजा और 30-डे ग्रुप टूरिस्ट वीजा की शुरुआत करने जा रहे हैं। मैन पावर मोबिलिटी हमारे लोगों को जोड़ने के साथ-साथ दोनों देशों के लिए नई ताकत और नए अवसर क्रिएट करेगी। मुझे खुशी है कि इससे बढ़ावा देने के लिए आज 2 समझौते किए गए हैं।
India is also expanding its diplomatic presence in Russia. 2 new consulates have opened up recently. The idea is to increase local outreach, to strengthen people-to-people ties. And then we come to headline number 5, terrorism. India and Russia have taken a united stand against terrorism.
आतंकवाद के विरुद्ध लड़ाई में भारत और रूस ने लंबे समय से कंधा मिलाकर सहयोग किया है। पहलगाम में हुआ आतंकी हमला हो या क्रोकस सिटी हॉल पर किया गया कायरतापूर्ण आघात, इन सभी घटनाओं की जड़ एक ही है। भारत का अटल विश्वास है कि आतंकवाद मानवता के मूल्यों पर सीधा प्रहार है और इसके विरुद्ध वैश्विक एकता ही हमारी सबसे बड़ी ताकत है।
The joint statement condemned two recent attacks, one in India, in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam, and the other in Russia, at Moscow's Crocus City Hall. Both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to counter terrorism in all its forms, including cross-border terror, terror financing networks, and terror safe havens. In fact, this has been a cornerstone of the India-Russia partnership. So those are the 5 big takeaways. Now let's also tell you what they left out. The war in Ukraine. It finds no mention in the joint statement, although Prime Minister Modi did speak about it, and here's what he said.
यूक्रेन के संबंध में भारत ने शुरुआत से शांति का पक्ष रखा है। हम इस विषय के शांतिपूर्ण और स्थायी समाधान के लिए किए जा रहे सभी प्रयासों का स्वागत करते हैं। भारत सदैव अपना योगदान देने के लिए तैयार रहा है और आगे भी रहेगा।
So this summit was about highlighting shared interests and reiterating that this relationship is here to stay. Western sanctions and pressure cannot force them to part ways. India and Russia are doubling down. If you follow West Asia, you must know this. The region is no stranger to drama. Rockets misfire, leaders issue threats, one side claims victory, the other side denies it. West Asia is full of bizarre tales. But this one truly takes the cake. It features an American bomb that did not explode, and now America wants it back. You can't make this up. Our story began last week. That's when Israel carried out a precision strike in Beirut. Beirut is the capital of Lebanon. Israel struck them. And the strike happened here in the southern suburbs of Beirut, a place called Haret Reik. This is a Hezbollah stronghold, and Israel's target was the chief of staff of the Hezbollah, this man. Israel says they killed him. 5 others were also killed in the strike. 28 others were injured. But here's the problem. Israel used one of their favorite American-made weapons, the GBU-39B small diameter bomb. Except one of these bombs did not do what bombs are supposed to do. It did not explode. It dropped without detonating. So an unexploded, fully intact, highly sensitive US glide bomb is lying in Hezbollah territory. It's like you can hear Washington panicking. So they did what the US does. They asked for it back. Imagine that. Your ally bombs another country, the bomb does not explode, and what do? You ask for that bomb back, like it's an Amazon package delivered to the wrong address. And why do the Americans want it back? Because they fear that it could fall into the hands of their enemies, aka Iran, China, and even Russia. But there's a reason why the Americans care so much about this one. The GBU-39B is one of America's favorite smart bombs. It was developed by Boeing. They have produced around 20,000 of these bombs, and the US has given a lot of them to allies like Israel. Each bomb weighs around 113 kilos. It deploys wings like a mini aircraft. It travels more than 110 kilometers without an engine, strikes targets with a 1-meter accuracy, and punches through concrete. It can be carried in packs of 4 instead of as one huge bomb. It fits inside the F-35 and F-22 weapons bay. In short, this is a small, cheap, deadly, and smart bomb. Now, glide bombs may not be rare anymore, but the efficient warhead on this one sets it apart. And that advanced guidance system is what makes it so special. That's what Washington is so worked up about. It fears that if the bomb keeps lying there, it can be reverse engineered. The Russians or the Chinese could do it. Even if they reverse engineer a small part of it, the US could be at a disadvantage because this is a product of decades of defense innovation. It is crucial to Washington's lead in precision bombing. Think of it this way. It's like leaving the new iPhone prototype in a bar. Also, this is not the first time that this is happening to the United States of America. It has raced to recover its own technology in the past too. In 2022, the US scrambled ships to retrieve an F-35C. It fell into the South China Sea. The Americans rushed before Beijing could get to it. In 2001, a US EP-3 spy plane landed in Hainan after a collision. The Chinese kept the plane and they stripped it clean. That's what Washington wants to avoid this time. So here's the million-dollar question. Where is the bomb now? The Lebanese officials won't say. The Hezbollah is quiet, and so is Israel. And Washington? Well, it's sweating. Maybe the bomb just got lost. Either way, it's hard to ignore the irony here. A bomb fired by Israel lands in Hezbollah neighborhood and triggers the United States, which now wants Lebanon to return it. We don't know if the Americans agreed to pay for the shipping, but this episode tells you one thing about modern warfare. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is not the one that explodes, but the one that fails. It is a period of churn in South Asia. Regimes are falling, leaders are fleeing, old equations are evolving. In this tumultuous period, you have two options. Either you adapt to the churn or you stay put and lose out. Seems like India is considering the first option. It is adapting. Last night, Prime Minister Narendra Modi posted a surprise message, a message for Bangladesh's Khaleda Zia. Khaleda Zia leads the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. In the past, they have worked against India's interests. But now Khaleda Zia is 80 years old and ailing. She was admitted to a hospital in Dhaka last week, so Prime Minister Modi sent her a message. Let me quote from his post. Deeply concerned to learn about the health of Begum Khaleda Zia, who has contributed to Bangladesh's public life for many years. Our sincere prayers and best wishes for her speedy recovery. India stands ready to extend all possible support in whatever way we can. I know it sounds like basic courtesy, but there is more at play here. There's geopolitics, history, and strategy. Let me tell you why. India is not the only one sending wishes to Khaleda Zia. China has flown a team of doctors to Dhaka. They are supervising her treatment. Turkey, Russia, Pakistan, South Korea, all of them have sent similar messages to Khaleda Zia, which makes you wonder why. Courtesy aside, her party is a power to reckon with. Sheikh Hasina's party, the Awami League, is banned. So the BNP is the largest political party in Bangladesh today. And this is a country that is heading into elections. They will hold elections in February. The BNP is expected to do really well in that election, maybe even form the government in Dhaka. Hence all the focus on Khaleda Zia. If her party wins, if the BNP wins, her son is expected to be Prime Minister. And India knows this too, which is why Prime Minister Modi posted this message. The question is, will this outreach work? Will it lead to a reset? Well, the BNP has reacted to Prime Minister Modi's message. Let me quote again. The BNP expresses its sincere gratitude to the Honourable Prime Minister of India for his thoughtful message and kind wishes for the speedy recovery of BNP chairperson Begum Khaleda Zia. The BNP deeply appreciates this gesture of goodwill and the expression of readiness to extend support. Again, very businesslike. But if you put this in context, a picture emerges. The picture of a possible reset. It is true that India was very close to Sheikh Hasina, but the BNP is not an unknown commodity. Prime Minister Modi met Khaleda Zia in 2015 when he visited Dhaka. It was a rare outreach to the Bangladeshi opposition. And after Sheikh Hasina was ousted, the outreach continued. In September last year, the Indian High Commissioner met BNP leaders. Afterwards, the party said that the ice was melting. Cut to 2025, Prime Minister Modi is wishing Khaleda Zia. Clearly, there is an attempt to reset ties, and frankly, it makes sense for both sides. For India, options are shrinking in Dhaka. Sheikh Hasina's Awami League has been virtually wiped out. The interim regime is hostile, and the Islamist Jamaat is out of question, which leaves us with the BNP. And for the BNP, India is a good partner to have, a reliable, stable, and prospering neighbor. Abusing India may get you votes inside Bangladesh, but the reality is Dhaka needs New Delhi. Just look at what happened in the Maldives. Their president campaigned on a platform of India out. That was his pitch, India out. But once he came to power, he warmed up to India. That's simple geographical reality, and the BNP probably realizes this. Unlike Muhammad Yunus or the Jamaat, they have actual governing experience. They know what it takes to rule in Dhaka. So on paper, a reset does make sense. But will it lead to something strong? Frankly, that's harder to say because there is a lot of bad blood here. The BNP has trashed Bangladesh's treaties with India, whether it's the Friendship Treaty of 1972 or the Ganga Water Treaty in 1996. Under their rule, rebels in northeast India were emboldened. Weapons would be smuggled from Bangladesh to India, and Khaleda Zia spearheaded this policy. Consider what she did in 2013. Then Indian President Pranab Mukherjee was visiting Dhaka. He was slated to meet Khaleda Zia during this trip, but Zia called off that meeting. So like I said, there's a lot of bad blood here. Having said that, 2025 is not 2013. Bangladesh is entering a new political reality next year. A lot hinges on the result of the February election. The BNP's first priority will be to win that election. A reset with India is secondary for them. To South Asia now. Sri Lanka has been fighting one of its worst natural disasters in years. It's been hit by a cyclone, Cyclone Ditwa. Floods have swallowed entire neighborhoods. Landslides have swept through villages. More than 400 people have been killed. Hundreds are still stranded on rooftops. The island nation needs help, and it needs help desperately. At a time like this, you would depend on your neighborhood, on nations to come together with relief and aid. And they did come through. India, as always, was the first responder. India sent aid and rescue teams to Sri Lanka. Nepal has announced $200,000 in aid. Bangladesh is sending relief. And then we have Pakistan. Pakistan, too, shipped aid to Sri Lanka. The High Commission clicked photos of what they were giving, and it posted these photos online with hearts and flags. The caption said, "Always standing together." But then came the plot twist. The pictures uploaded by the Pakistani High Commission showed bags of aid. The internet zoomed in, and here's what they found. Written on one bag, EXP 2024. EXP stands for expiry. 2024 was last year, which means the bag of aid expired last year. So did Pakistan send an expired bag of aid to Sri Lanka? That's the question the internet is asking. And I wouldn't blame Pakistan much here. With their battered economy and an army general consolidating power, they may not even realize what year it is. Maybe they thought it's the early 2000s. But it did not escape the internet's wrath. And then came the fun part. Islamabad said nothing about this. Sri Lanka did not comment either. But here's what the Pakistani High Commission did. They deleted the post. The post that drew so much scrutiny, the post that made headlines, instead of issuing a clarification, they just deleted it. And then to deflect criticism, they trained their guns on India. They said India was blocking their aid flight. It's a classic Uno reverse. When fingers are pointed at Pakistan, they invariably turn to India. According to Pakistan's Foreign Office, India had been quote-unquote delaying permission. Permission for what? For its aid flight to pass through Indian airspace. And they say this delay is hampering Pakistan's relief mission. This is Islamabad's POV. Of course, India had none of it. The Ministry of External Affairs exposed them again. They publicly laid out the facts, or like Gen Z would say it, they dropped the receipts. Pakistan requested an overflight at 1 p.m. India granted clearance at 5:30 p.m. The entire process took less than 5 hours, which is unusually fast for diplomatic aviation. New Delhi called Pakistani media claims baseless, misleading, and fake. And while Islamabad was busy blaming India, India was busy helping Sri Lanka. New Delhi launched Operation Sagar Bandhu. It moved 53 tons of relief supplies to Sri Lanka. INS Vikrant sent helicopters for rescue. INS Sukanya reached Trincomalee with tons of relief. Chetak and Mi-17 helicopters rescued stranded civilians. NDRF teams were deployed for search and rescue. That's the National Disaster Relief Force, NDRF. Indians, Sri Lankans, Germans, Slovenians, South Africans, everyone was rescued. India was in action mode, not accusation mode, which made Islamabad's complaint even more awkward. So did Pakistan really send expired aid? Well, here's the only honest answer. It looks like it. The photo says yes. Maybe it was mislabeled. Maybe it applied only to one item. Maybe someone did not check the boxes. Or maybe it was exactly what it looked like. And that's what makes this entire episode so damning. Because the aid was not the story. The deletion was the story. The deflection was the story. The blaming India part was the story. Pakistan truly showed us that even in the middle of a natural disaster, they can create a man-made one. Our next story is about cars, about a new car crisis that's unfolding in global markets. It is not about electric vehicles, it's about petrol cars and China. China is the world's largest auto exporter. Most of the cars it sells still run on fossil fuels like petrol. And look at the projections. China is on track to export over 4 million petrol cars. And this shift is major. You see, legacy Chinese automakers have been pushed out of the domestic market because Beijing has subsidized EVs, so they're cheaper, they sell more. And that leaves legacy automakers with surplus stock, with a lot of unsold cars, and they're offloading this stock in emerging markets. These cars are cheap, they're packed with features, and they're hard to compete with. China is selling them to the world now. And so global car makers are losing market share. Some governments are responding with tariffs and restrictions. But those measures alone may not be enough. Here's a report.
China's electric vehicle boom has made headlines. But it's creating a different kind of shockwave abroad. China is flooding global markets with something unexpected. Petrol cars. Yes, while EVs dominate at home, China is exporting gas-powered vehicles at a record pace. And that's now reshaping the global car market. Not in the US, not in Europe, but in the rest of the world. Let's look at the numbers. China is now the world's largest auto exporter. It's expected to ship 6.5 million cars this year. That includes electric vehicles, but most are still powered by fossil fuels. Gasoline cars alone will account for 4.3 million exports this year. That's nearly 2/3 of the total. So who's behind this surge? It's not Tesla or BYD. It's China's state-owned giants. Companies like SAIC, Dongfeng, BAIC, Chang'an, and Chery. These are old players. They used to rely on joint ventures with GM, Nissan, and Honda. But after getting squeezed by the EV price war at home, they pivoted. Now they're focusing on exports, and they're growing fast. Chery is the top exporter. It sold 2.6 million vehicles globally in 2024. Most of them petrol-powered. Private firms like Geely and Great Wall are also joining in. They're shipping more combustion engine models than EVs. Only BYD and Tesla focus purely on electric exports. Why is this happening now? Because of overcapacity. China spent years building new EV factories, but it didn't convert the old ones. That's left massive idle capacity for petrol cars. By some estimates, those factories could still make 30 million combustion vehicles. And automakers don't want to shut them down. So they're exporting instead. Where are these cars going? Not to the US or EU. Tariffs and regulations are tough there. Instead, China is targeting emerging and second-tier markets. Latin America, Eastern Europe, Africa, West Asia, Southeast Asia. Markets where EV charging is scarce. And petrol still dominates. And in these regions, Chinese cars are winning. In Poland, Chinese brands are growing fast. In Chile, they now hold a third of the market. In South Africa, it's 16%. How are Chinese cars beating the competition? They're cheaper. They're often based on older global designs, and they come loaded with features. Take the Dongfeng Rich 6. It's based on a Nissan design, but sells for about $10,000 less. This model is now popular across Africa and South America. Western automakers are being outpriced and outpaced. Not by EVs, but by China's old petrol fleet. Governments are starting to respond. Mexico has raised tariffs sharply. Russia is charging higher import fees. South Africa is trying to strike a balance, inviting factories but eyeing restrictions on cheap imports. And it's not just about trade anymore. It's now a global policy issue. Chinese overcapacity has become geopolitical. So what does this mean for the future of cars? It means the real battle for global market share is no longer in the West. It's playing out in emerging economies, where the infrastructure isn't ready for EVs, and petrol cars still dominate. China is moving fast. It's filling a gap others ignored, with big cars, low prices, and smart targeting. For legacy automakers, it's a wake-up call, because while the world focuses on EV tariffs, China's petrol cars are quietly taking over the rest, and they're not slowing down.
December is a busy travel season in India, but it has kicked off with pure chaos. With more than 1,000 flights cancelled in one day, 1,000 flights. There were delays of more than 24 hours, thousands of people stranded at airports, many were left without food and water. There were even protests at some airports. And all of this traces back to one thing, a pilot crisis crippling the country's largest airline, IndiGo.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Peter Elbers, the CEO of IndiGo. I want to share with you that we have experienced severe operational disruptions for the past few days. Since then, the crisis continued to aggravate, with today, December 5th, being the most severely impacted day, with the number of cancellations well over 1,000, or more than half of our number of daily flights. I, on behalf of all of us at IndiGo, would like to extend our sincerest apologies for the major inconvenience this has caused to many of our customers.
Things were so bad that the Indian government is being forced to intervene. They have launched an investigation into this. Now, we told you about all of it yesterday. IndiGo is India's largest airline. They have a 60% market share. They operate 2,200 flights every day. This month, IndiGo had implemented new flight time rules by the DGCA. That's the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA. It's basically India's aviation watchdog. They came up with new rules. These rules increase rest time for pilots. The rules are meant to ensure safety. But for IndiGo, that meant a pilot shortage. Its flights are known for being on time. But today, IndiGo's on-time performance has plunged to 88.5%. That means nothing is taking off on time. The crisis was so bad at one point that a flight ticket from New Delhi to Mumbai ranged from 35,000 rupees to 50,000 rupees. Imagine that. And this is the busiest route in the country, Delhi-Mumbai. This ticket normally costs around 5,000 to 6,000 rupees. It went up by nearly 10 times, 50,000. All of this has made India's aviation watchdog intervene. That's the DGCA. They've now rolled back the new flight time rules. Basically, things can now go back to how they were. This is a temporary exemption, they say, and it's only to stabilize things for now. In fact, let me read from the statement of the DGCA. The central government is fully alert to air passenger woes and is in constant consultation with all stakeholders. Every possible measure, including the exemptions, as announced by DGCA on Friday, will be taken to restore schedules and ensure stability. But the DGCA is not letting IndiGo get away with it. They have ordered a high-level investigation. The aviation watchdog will form a 4-member panel. They will investigate what went wrong. How did IndiGo crumble so badly with these new rules?
Given the size, scale, and complexity of our operation, it will take some time to return to a full normal situation, which we do anticipate between the 10th and the 15th of December.
Now, this crisis will not resolve itself in a day or two. If you have flights in the next few days, please keep checking the schedule. There will be more disruptions. The IndiGo CEO himself said the disruptions will continue till the 15th of December. That said, not everybody is happy with the DGCA's move, especially the Pilots Association of India. They think that the aviation watchdog has caved. Let me read from their statement as well. This decision, taken despite repeated representations, formal letters and direct discussions with your esteemed office, has undermined the very spirit of the FDTL regulations and gravely compromised the safety of the flying public. So for pilots, the new norms are for safety. Diluting them means endangering safety. And it's not just the pilots who are angry. Social media users are questioning the watchdog's move as well. They say it impacts passenger safety. They're questioning the limits of pilots. They believe that IndiGo is holding the entire system hostage and that the blackmail has worked. Which brings us to the big question tonight. Is India's aviation system prepared for such shocks? Or have we built a sector so fragile that it can crumble in minutes? Because think about it, IndiGo controls 60% of India's skies. Air India holds another 25%. Together, that's 85% of the market share between two airlines. That means these two airlines control 4 out of every 5 seats in this country. It's a classic duopoly. So even if one of them fails, even if one chokes, the entire system collapses. And it has. SpiceJet has added extra flights to relieve the chaos, but that's not been enough. Nothing could match the sheer scale at which IndiGo operates, and this raises many questions. These new rules were decided upon last year. IndiGo had enough time to prepare for this. So why weren't they ready? And if they were not ready, what did the DGCA do about it? Why did the aviation watchdog not act faster? Why did the government not intervene earlier? This is the 5th day of the crisis. They're all active now, but why did they wait for it to escalate this far? We are the 5th largest aviation market in the world. What happens when India's aviation traffic doubles? What happens when we become the world's 3rd largest market? Are we prepared for that? Are our regulators prepared? Are our airlines prepared? Or are we just hoping that nothing breaks? Because this week something did break and the country got a glimpse of how vulnerable our skies really are. It's time we take accountability and fix this. Now let's talk about the latest scare in the skies. It happened last week. An Airbus plane dipped mid-flight. This was an Airbus A320. It dipped unexpectedly, and this triggered a global alert. Airbus had to ground many planes. Turns out a solar flare had disrupted the flight system. And then today, they suffered a second blow. A quality flaw was found in the fuselage of the planes. These were undelivered A320 planes. They found a flaw. Needless to say, the deliveries have been delayed and Airbus shares have dropped by 10%. So 2 crises in 2 days. Neither may cause lasting damage for the company, but it serves as a reminder that global aviation still rests on two wings, Airbus and Boeing, two companies that have a virtual monopoly on commercial aviation. And when one stumbles, there is no fallback option. Here's a report.
It began with a sudden dip. An Airbus A320 lost altitude mid-air. Pilots quickly regained control, but what caused it was something no engineer could have anticipated: a solar flare. Yes, a burst of energy from the sun. It happened far away, but it triggered panic across global aviation. Airbus grounded planes from its A320 fleet. The incident triggered a worldwide advisory. Engineers traced the issue to the flight control computer. The system had received corrupted signals. Elevators and ailerons, the parts that control how the plane flies, responded slowly. A delay of just seconds, but in the air, that's all it takes. The root cause? Radiation, specifically a powerful solar flare, the strongest flare of 2025. It briefly pierced Earth's magnetic shield and interfered with the aircraft's internal systems. Now, radiation from the sun isn't new. Earth gets bombarded every day. But once in a solar cycle, roughly every 11 years, the activity peaks. And during those peaks, even well-shielded systems can glitch. This time, it hit the aircraft. Next time, it could be satellites, power grids, or even internet cables. That's how vulnerable modern infrastructure has become. For Airbus, the scare was short-lived. But the panic wasn't over yet. Because today, the company faced a different problem. Reports surfaced of a quality issue. This time, it wasn't radiation. It was a flaw in the metal fuselage panels on dozens of A320 aircraft. The issue has delayed deliveries. It hasn't affected aircraft already in service, but it was enough to spook investors. Shares of Airbus fell by as much as 10% before recovering slightly later in the day. In just 48 hours, Airbus was hit by two different crises, one cosmic, one corporate. Neither caused long-term damage, but together they've exposed something deeper, a vulnerability in global aviation, not in engineering, but in supply. Because today, the world depends on just two companies to build most of its planes: Airbus and Boeing. That's it. No third option, no backup plan. And that's the risk. When Boeing faltered with the 737 MAX, airlines turned to Airbus. Now, when Airbus has hit turbulence, there's nowhere else to go. And that's what these incidents have reminded us. It's about how fragile the aviation ecosystem really is. A single software glitch can ground thousands of planes. A missed weld can delay dozens of deliveries. And a solar flare can scramble flight computers mid-air. So while Airbus works to patch its software and fix its panels, the world is watching. Not because one company stumbled, but because everyone is flying on the same two wings: Airbus and Boeing. And if either one falters, the world's flight path gets shakier.
There's a moment in every tech company's life when the alarm bells start ringing. For Google, that moment came in 2022. A chatbot took over the internet. It was called ChatGPT. Artificial intelligence took the world by storm. Google was lagging behind. It marked what many would call code red in the company. Fast forward to 3 years later, and the story has flipped. Today, OpenAI is the one hitting the panic button. The makers of ChatGPT, OpenAI. Their CEO, Sam Altman, has issued his own code red. So what has triggered this, and how did Google steal the march on OpenAI? That's what we'll discuss tonight. OpenAI, as you know, launched ChatGPT in 2022. It's been 3 years, 800 million weekly users now, and $500 billion in valuation. But here's the thing about being on top. You can feel the wind changing before others do. And that wind arrived in the form of Google's Gemini 3. That's Google's new AI model. It is powerful and advanced. It holds the top position on several benchmarks, so much so that even ChatGPT loyalists have shifted teams. I'll give you an example. Look at this post by Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff. He said he used ChatGPT for 3 years. He spent just 2 hours on Gemini 3, and now there's no going back. Inside OpenAI, this hit hard. Reports say Sam Altman sent out a code red memo. What does that mean? What's code red? It means all hands on deck, everything else can wait, fix ChatGPT right now. Here's what Sam Altman is asking his team to do. All new initiatives like ads, shopping and health agents will be delayed. All work on a personal assistant will also be halted. The focus will be completely on ChatGPT, on features like speed, reliability, personalization, and the ability to answer questions. The memo says there will be a daily call, especially with those improving the chatbot. Sam Altman is also encouraging team transfers, even if they're temporary. The idea is to improve app development. Because here's the thing about being number one. Being ahead in an AI race is not fun. It's a curse wrapped in glory. When you're the leader, every update is judged, every slowdown is punished, every new rival is compared to you, and everyone expects you to stay ahead. So OpenAI's biggest strength, its momentum, has suddenly become its liability. And let's be clear, OpenAI is massive. It's a big company, but it's not Google massive. OpenAI revenue this year was $20 billion. Even then, the company is not profitable, even with $20 billion, not even close. Do you know why? Because they spend too much. They've pledged to spend $1.4 trillion in the next 8 years. And that's a problem when your valuation is $500 billion. Even more of a problem when the world suddenly believes that you're not number one anymore. You have a very real problem. Will investors still write the next check? That's the question OpenAI would worry about. So Code Red is not just about the model. It's about OpenAI's entire business. Also, let's look at Google here. If this were a movie, Google's arc would be called The Empire Strikes Back. You see, Google first came out with an AI model called Bard. It was quite bad. It was embarrassing. So the company took a year to rebuild, and Bard became Gemini. And when Gemini 3 dropped, it wasn't just a model, it was an ecosystem update. It had image generation that rivals OpenAI's Sora, video understanding that embarrasses older models, and integration across Android, Search, Gmail, and Docs. Nano Banana for images, free access for developers, subsidized compute, and no outages on launch day. It is the AI equivalent of a perfect launch. And Google is not sweating funding. It prints tens of billions every quarter. That should explain why OpenAI is scared. Not because Google is better, but because Google can afford to wait and crush on its own timetable. Moral of the story? When you're in the second place, you need to win only once. But when you're in the first place, you need to win every single day. And that is OpenAI's story. The world's most famous AI company is fighting to prove that it can still hold on to its crown. It is December, and that means one thing on campus. The placement season is underway. This year, it has started with a bang. The IITs are once again in the spotlight. And IIT is an Indian Institute of Technology. These are India's premier institutions for engineering students. And recruitment numbers here are breaking records. IIT Kanpur is making headlines. It saw the highest number of offers made on day one of campus recruitment. Global firms are making a comeback, and startups are hiring in bigger numbers. Even core engineering roles are seeing a revival, and that's perhaps the biggest takeaway. After a year of tech layoffs and AI-induced anxiety, top talent is still finding placement. They remain in demand. The jobs have not disappeared, they have just evolved. Here's a report.
It's that time of the year when job offers roll in and the IITs dominate headlines. But this year, the story is different. The placement season hasn't just started well, it's off to a record-breaking start. At IIT Kanpur, the numbers speak for themselves. On day one alone, 672 offers were made. That's the highest ever opening tally for the campus, and a 16% jump from last year. For a student body preparing for job uncertainty, this is a big morale boost. Offers are also coming in early. By the end of the first day, over 500 students had been placed. That includes roles across software, analytics, consulting, and core engineering. And many of them were picked up by global giants. Big brands recruiting on campus: Airbus, SAP, HSBC, BlackRock, Qualcomm, and Accenture. Together, more than 250 companies have already participated at IIT Kanpur, and that number is set to rise. PPOs, or pre-placement offers, have seen a sharp jump. This year, IIT Kanpur recorded 253 PPOs. That's a 27% rise from last year. The reason? Internships are translating into full-time jobs. Firms are hiring students they've already trained. It's saving time and reducing hiring risk. Meanwhile, at IIT Bombay, another headline grabbed attention. A company named Da Vinci made an offer worth 1.48 crore rupees. That's roughly $160,000. This is one of the highest salary packages this year. It's not just one-off either. More high-paying roles are emerging in AI, data science, and quant research. So what roles are in demand? The data is clear. Software and core developer roles are leading. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are big draws. UI, UX, and design roles are less visible this year. Companies want coders, people who can work with data and build with new technology. International placements have also started early. 9 global offers have already been confirmed at IIT Kanpur. More are expected in Phase 2. Students say it's not just about the pay, it's about the kind of work on offer and the confidence that comes with being industry-ready. This placement season is also different because of the context. Over the last year, headlines have been dominated by layoffs, especially in tech, and fears around AI replacing jobs. But the early signs from IITs are reassuring. Demand for top-tier talent still exists, and companies are willing to pay for it. Startups are also hiring again. In 2023, many were cautious. This year, they're back in larger numbers. Core companies are also increasing their hiring. That's helping diversify job profiles. So it's not just software anymore. Mechanical, electrical, and civil engineering graduates are also in demand. The placement season has just begun, but the tone is already set. If this momentum continues, IITs across the country will see strong recruitment. For India's engineering graduates, this is a sign of hope, that the job market is shifting, not shrinking, that there's space for AI-ready talent, and that with the right skills, young professionals can still shape their own future.
Vladimir Putin's trip to India has triggered many questions like, will India buy more Russian weapons? How will Western countries react? How will China see it? Well, these are all serious political questions, and we will answer them tomorrow. But today is all about the vibe. It's a very joyous vibe in the national capital, and that has spilled over to social media. Take a look at this.